Well, hello, that's me again. It's September 16th, Friday, so I'm wishing you all a good weekend. I probably will communicate with you hopefully on Sunday, but there are some things which we can talk today about, and they are sort of off the cuff and bipolar issues again. And before we proceed, I want to explain to you why even while still the bunch of the especially neocon publications in the United States, such as Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, and all kinds of the Ukraine basically lobbied media outlets continue to dwell on this issue of the Kharkov so-called offensive, why we are beginning to see more and more the headlines like this. You can actually go to Yahoo News and do some kind of the Ukraine offensive search, and you will see yourself that you see White House saying don't declare Ukrainian victory prematurely. Then U.S. leaders avoid victory dance in Ukraine, combat advances, and things of this nature. And we have so much this what is called tactical minutiae, as I already stated, which of course, I mean, it's important only insofar as the strategy and operations are concerned. And when you look at this basically headlines, and you also begin to learn from New York Times, for example, that Jake Sullivan and Mr. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and people of this nature actually were directly involved, including military attaches and American advisors on the ground in Kiev in planning of this offensive, so to speak. You have to understand why suddenly they started to kind of pull back a little bit from declaring this such a victory, especially after I presented to you in the last video this delirium from the Jamestown Foundation, the guy from Ukraine. And obviously the square mileage of the territory captured actually grows exponentially. Now evidently the CNN declaring yesterday that there was like something like an 8.5 square kilometers. So as I already stated, in a couple of weeks expect the 25,000 square kilometers, and by the end of or the start of the October, they probably will liberate everything up to Moscow's gate. So that's going to be another 2.5–3 million square kilometers, and that's what it is. But yet, American side is beginning to kind of, a little bit shaky on this whole situation, and I will explain you why. The reason being, of course, that being those American operational strategic planners who cannot fight their way out of the paper bag and who lost every single freaking war they ever fought, what they planned, and they did plan, it's a known fact now, the United States is directly involved into the planning and command and control of the Ukrainian forces, and New York Times says about the provision of their intelligence and things of this nature. So the reason they are really kind of getting back on that a little bit is because of that, because being the graduates of the school of Zapp from Futurama of strategic studies, they use this strategy, which is called, you see, kill bots have a preset kill limit. Knowing their weakness, I send wave after wave of my own men at them until they reach their limit and shut down. This is an incredible strategy, actually, and you know probably that Zapp Brannigan also was known for mobilizing senior citizens and, throwing them again at all those kill bots. Well, killbots being, of course, Russians, and unlike the killbots from Futurama, Russians do not have a preset limit on killing. They actually, that's what they are in this business for. They basically not just only grind down, they just kill those VSU and international mercenaries, many of them from Anglosphere, in the industrial quantities. And that is why when you look at this Kharkov thing, which is of course beginning to kind of move away from the focus of many, it's the fact that basically first, it's not a very good planning to start with, because in the end, they and the armed forces of Ukraine they ended where Russians wanted them to start with, in the open. You know, they squeezed them out of those urban centers, and you have this situation. And I, on record on that, I've been speaking about this for the last week or so. When everybody were in panic mode, those people who allegedly support Russia and special military operation, that basically it had nothing to do actually with operational success. It's primarily tactical success. And as you already know, I'm also on record, and operational art science, so to speak, although it's art too, is on record that, yeah, the wars are won on the operational strategic level. So now we have the situation, and as one of few really serious Russian military analysts, Alexei Leonkov, who is also the contributor to a number of very serious Russian military publications, and Leonkov stated already on the 8th or 9th of September that we are seeing now the basically disclosure, revelation of this, as he called, reserve army. I wouldn't call it army, but those reserve units which have been trained, assembled and trained in the west of Ukraine, and including on the territory also of in Poland and other NATO countries. They were training there, as they love to say it, to NATO standard, which is really just standard, just basic tactical training. And these were the guys who first saw the action, this kind of reserve, as he said, well, they are strategic reserves for Ukraine. They saw the first action around Kherson starting on the August 27th, and we know what it all ended up with. For now, the updated data on the KIAs alone at Kherson, this stands somewhere around 10,000+ KIAs. And they continue, Russians continue to basically annihilate them there. And they throw them at the attack in the typical Zapp Brannigan, fashion. They think Russians, as those kill bots from Futurama, they have the kill limit, and so they try to overwhelm this kill limit with the throwing wave after wave of people who, of VSU, Armed Forces of Ukraine, and mercenaries who are being annihilated. Same is happening in Kharkov. Some people say there are rumors that the Kupiansk have been surrendered. I don't know if it's true or not, but again, as I already stated, this is not the main direction. And again, look at if you love this military porn and tactical minutia, look at the maps, look at the news from official sources, and you will see yourself that actually Russians advancing, primarily LDNR militias, they're advancing quite well in Donbass, and so we are seeing their very interesting development. So everything in this particular case is fine, and yeah, as usual, this tactical success fizzled out because it never turned into the operational one. And what is operational one is a whole other story describing what we define as an operational success. So, but Milley, Sullivan, and their basically cabal of the staffers who ever planned this, the whole operation fizzled out, as it was supposed to do. And as I already stated, they will continue the terrorism activities, Ukrainians, and that is why Vladimir Putin, speaking in Samarkand, he stated, well, we showed them not days, a week ago, that what may expect them. Next time we're not going to be as basically polite and restrained, and you know what happened. A bunch of the electric supply stations and substations have been taken out, and including those very expensive and very unique. They are really one a type, league of their own transformers, which are 100 kilovolt transformers, and you cannot replace them. Not anytime soon, not easily. You cannot even fix them. So next time probably Russia will turn off the lights over all of Ukraine, and that will be much more permanent. But they will continue the terrorism activity, and we know that, so I think so Russia is ready for that. But let's go back to the situation which also describes the degree of their desperation, so to speak, And one of them, if you look at the headlines, where can we go without those headlines? Today's headlines, even this CNN, bullshit network, has to admit that Russian sanctions slow to bite as US officials admit frustrations over pace of pain in Moscow. And senior US officials tell CNN, obviously they, basically we don't know the names of those officials, but hey, it's CNN, whatever they say must be true, right? So the senior US officials tell CNN that they are disappointed that US-led sanctions haven't had a bigger impact so far on the Russian economy, and are now predicting that the harshest effects probably won't materialize until early next year at the earliest. Of course they predict, we know, and that's, I'm on record, I will reiterate it again. United States basically and combined West ran into on the very high speed into the brick wall of the incompetence. You cannot have the country being run by people with degrees in political science and economics as it is taught in Ivy League, which is not really economics. They teach you basically monetary theory and finances. You need accountants, make no mistake. Accountants are, bookkeeping is an extremely important field, and you need it for real economy, for any kind of economy. But primarily people who sit out there and so-called captains of industry in the United States nowadays, they are people with the financial education or MBAs, and they destroy pretty much everything they touch. And you can see it on the example of Boeing, of course. And when you have people like from Amazon, which is basically nothing more than a mail company, or you have people who run the retail networks. Nothing wrong with retail, again, make no mistake. But those people, they don't understand what actually a real economy is, what production is, and how really things are made. For example, if you run the retail chain, you only know when they will be made. You do not care about the industrial processes. You don't care really about technology. You care about the product being delivered, and that obviously involves the transportation. So you have these people, political scientists, and all that kind of stuff, who run United States, and they run it into the ground very successfully. And obviously the frustration not only with the sanctions, because obviously, as you can see yourself, we are talking about that China and Russia move to disrupt the dollar dominance in oil markets, and this is like old news, guys, that the dollarization is proceeding apace, with Turkey today agreeing to starting paying quarter of Russia carbon hydro, whatever, the oil and gas in rubles. And this is not only China, Turkey, they're pretty much India already is full blown in, and that is what creates this kind of sense of panic and unease there. And then, of course, you have this news for those great planners from Pentagon who are basically with the old degrees with Zapp, Brannigan operations. And again, mind you, these are the guys who didn't win shit basically in many decades now, then basically lost everything they ever fought. And here it is. Now we have the Pentagon screaming, which I understand, it's pretty reasonable that they do this, and you have to understand that it's not only about screaming about the new funding and what have you. No, it is indeed legitimate screaming about the fact that Biden allows for the drawdown on Pentagon stockpiles for Ukraine, which, by the way, tells you about the real situation in the Ukrainian front, so to speak, because this equipment and personnel is being eradicated, annihilated by Russia in industrial quantities. And that is what National Defense and Industrial Association tells. It estimated that the US military will experience an 110 billion loss in purchasing power in the next fiscal year due to runaway inflation, arguing that the Pentagon will need additional $42 billion for the budget just to keep up. Well, you know what? In accordance to all our news, and which have been, spewed around, Ukraine is winning the war. There is no inflation. American economy is growing wonderfully, and everything is, just tip top. Just absolutely, peach perfect. Well, obviously it is absolutely opposite to the truth, but as I already stated, not only U.S. modern elites, including those people who do the strategic forecasting in the United States, are incompetent. They are incompetent. And I'm talking about like literally incompetent. They don't know subject they are talking about. We're looking obviously at the situation that basically the United States now has nowhere to go. And no matter how you spin things, you cannot hide the premonition, the feel of a sense of foreboding, and rightly so, because obviously we know what is happening economically. We already know that huge layouts are already in store. Midterms are coming, and the optics, the tactical minutia, the tactical, completely spun successes of armed forces of Ukraine don't do the trick, and they do not turn into any kind of serious victory. In fact, they are, as already stated, Zapp type victory with the horrendous losses. And what do you need? You need more incompetence talking about how bad things are. And speaking about those people who are incompetent, let me put up the wonderful piece from my friend Larry Johnson, who stated again yesterday, Larry being a real professional, don't forget, he's former CIA and anti-terrorism professional with hands-on experience of more than 25 years, so this guy knows what he's talking about. And in his sarcastic way, he puts Putin and his army on the ropes again. And he is basically stating this as it is. I'm not making this up. There is a growing conviction in many eminent circles in the United States and Europe who believe and embrace this article from Business Insider. And he is talking about how basically Putin army disintegrated already. We already know Russians lost millions of people and they're really fighting desperately at the gates of Moscow right now. But Larry correctly points out this very important fact, and Larry being intelligence professional and anti-terrorism professional, and here it is. Only when you read this article from Business Insider and examine the experts, quote-unquote, consulted, do you realize this is more delusional nonsense devoid of evidence. And let me explain to you why. I am on the record. United States doesn't have Russian expertise today, none whatsoever. Basically what it has is caricature. You can thank for that a bunch of the so-called American Russian experts who are clowns. Most of them are, and again, they won't be able to hold any conversation with professional person, and they will be scared shitless, for example, to communicate with people like me or Larry Johnson trying to prove their point because they don't have any. Just to demonstrate it to you is this thing. Here's the lady which is very popular on Fox, Rebecca Koffler. I wrote about this lady. She is from Kazakhstan, former Soviet Republic, if to believe her biography. And she actually, by education, yeah, sit if you're standing. She's actually English language teacher who graduated Moscow Institute, Pedagogical Institute. And then, of course, she basically emigrated to the United States. And in order for her to find any employment, she started to sell herself as the specialist in Russian strategic culture. You can read her book if you want to. She is wrote about the secret plans and all that. Half of the book is redacted and blacked out. But yeah, this woman continues to spew bullshit, apart from it being completely bipolar, if not to schizophrenic. She both accuses Russia in the meddling into elections in 2016, and in the same time she supports Trump. So I cannot find even more contradictory things in life than that. And she is speaking about how Russia is just secretly trying to undermine the United States. Well, selling bullshit is a good old American tradition, but let me put it this way. Russia doesn't have secret plan of the destroying United States. Russia has a very open and quite well articulated plan of what it's going to do with the United States. And of course, Rebecca Koffler, for all her 8 years in DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and being whatever she is, like national asset or what have you, and being consulting on things she has no clue about. Her book is hilarious in terms of the military incompetence and absolute ignorance. But the point is, she sells basically known fact. Basically, she's Bizmenov, Mr. Bizmenov #2. She sells obvious, open facts as some kind of the intelligence activity. But Russia is very clear about what it wants the United States to do. Then you can read it in the open. Mr. Putin says it. Read 2007 speech in Munich. Russia will destroy, and she's very successfully destroying it, unipolar moment. And that's pretty much it. Russians don't want America dead, by no means, but this is not the point of our, not the topic of our conversation today. So, and when you have the experts like Rebecca Koffler, who militarily and strategically would know shit from Shinola, being the basically as removed from the Soviet and Russian military as humanly possible, being basically English language teacher and excursion guide in Moscow. So, but yeah, that's the type of the personnel who actually consults basically modern American elites about Russia, and that is why each time they get frustrated when their plans, be them military or economic, doesn't work, because it's caricature. Should they have known the real situation, they wouldn't attempt the basically complete madness what they're trying to, do time after time, following in the classic Einsteinian truism, which is about insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting the different result out of it. But if Rebecca Koffler is not this Exhibit A, then there is another Exhibit A, and I spoke about this guy, not this guy actually, I spoke about Jamestown's Foundation, about the article that about the operational mastery by the armed forces of Ukraine. And of course we have this Polish guy, Janusz Bugajski, who basically wrote the book A Guide to Russia's Rupture, a Failed State. And yeah, it's a Jamestown Foundation. It is stuffed with people who are absolutely incompetent and are therefore sinecures by selling bullshit. But when you look at Mr. Bugajski's basically educational, the background, you will immediately understand why nothing fucking works, pardon my French, in the combined West. And look at this. That's Mr. Bugajski, basically degree in nothing. It's actually his PhD in, or whatever the hell it is, Master of whatever. I'm not going to discuss here all those gradations of the degrees, but in social anthropology from the London School of Economics and Political Science. And in 1981-83, he has been consultant on Polish affairs for BBC Television. He became senior research analyst of Radio Free Europe. In Germany, he joined the Center for Strategic International Studies in Washington and established the Center East European department. Generally, the guy has degree in nothing. And that's why, for example, neither Rebecca Koffler or Mr. Bugajski, they will understand what real economy is, how it works, and what real military is, how it works. And obviously those people are technologically extremely backward. And when I begin to tell you, like, it's obvious, it's obvious for many people, actually, that you cannot have those people running the country. They produce bullshit as their forecast. They don't understand what they're doing. And some of them, conducting a completely insane, homicidal, and suicidal policies, be that immigration policy by Joe Biden, or be that basically destruction of the American or Western education, let alone green agenda, which is completely suicidal. And we're looking at what is happening in Europe, then you begin to understand that basically, what? Many people would prefer to obviously talk about some kind of this invisible force, this invisible hand of something, of the conspiracy to kill Western civilization. Maybe partially it's true, because this invisible hand are actually quite visible. This is the bureaucracies and the political elites, which are dumbasses, frankly, But it is also just basically classic laws of history, of economics, of military science, which are at work here. And those people don't know them. And that is why we end up being them in militarily, socially, economically, with Zapp Brannigan's ideas and strategies. And that is why we have those results, which are catastrophic for the combined West. And as I already stated, this failed state of Russia, they still, frustrated that Russians are not experiencing pain. Well, if they would have learned proper history of Russia, and they would have learned proper economics, that we have learned proper military strategies and proper military science, they wouldn't have those issues and frustrations. For starters, if they would learn them, that might have increased their IQ by an order of magnitude or two, and they probably would avoid doing the shit which they are doing right now, basically killing their societies and killing their countries, and everybody sees this. But what do I know, So I just write books on that and make comments on that. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, prior to the weekend. And from what I see, there is some developments in the basically main Donbass thrust. And we will have to wait for a day or two to see what else is going to happen there. But generally speaking, the terrorist activity of Ukraine, obviously supported by the United States and United Kingdom and NATO, will continue, and it is what it is. It's reality of that type of the operation, and I will be commenting on this hopefully more. And as always, for those people who like what I do and can support me financially, certainly I would appreciate them doing this greatly. And I want to express again my profound gratitude to my wonderful, wonderful patrons. They are the ones who allow me to do what I'm doing. And of course, people who like what I do, also please subscribe to my channel. And this is what I wanted to talk about today, guys. And I'll talk to you later. Have a nice start of your weekend. Bye-bye.